Building a good team is one of the most important things you should be doing in Zenless Zone Zero to not only get the most value out of your account, but also so you can easily beat all the endgame content in the shield defense mode. As such, in today's video, I'm going to be presenting the 5 best teams for you to use in Zenless Zone Zero so you can crush your way through the game and have a good time. Hello everyone, my name is DarkHero and let's get started. Now, a very important thing that you should all know before we approach the different teams is how exactly do you go about making an effective team in Zenless Zone Zero. Well, ideally you would want to fill the 3 agent slots on your team with characters that are competent in fulfilling their own role and that have synergy between them. So very quickly, let's cover all of that. There are 5 different specialties that each character in Zenless Zone Zero can have, and they are Attacker, Defender, Stunner, Anomaly, and finally Support. And of course, as you can expect from their names, each of these different specialties are going to fulfill their own role distinctively. So the attackers are going to focus on dealing as much damage as possible, the Defender is going to act as a tank for the team or will provide a shield so that they don't get hit, the Stunner will focus on building up daze and stunning the enemies so that they either take more damage or cannot take action against you, the Anomaly characters are going to focus on inflicting debilitations on the enemies to either have them take more damage or be susceptible to all types of damage from all other characters. And finally, the supports are going to focus on improving the overall performance of the entire team. So when making the perfect team, ideally you would try to use a good mix of these 5 different specialties to try to make a team that can not only deal a good amount of damage, but can also deal with all types of enemies and can be secure even against the most powerful bosses. And to that effect, another thing that also needs to be taken into consideration when selecting the characters for your team is their elemental attribute as well as their faction, because you see there's actually a very tangible and powerful benefit to having characters sharing the same attribute and faction, as all characters in this game are going to have a core skill that is going to provide them a significant buff if they share the same attribute or faction as someone else in the same squad. So when setting up a team, you should really pay attention to that, and before you go on a mission, this small indicator will help you know whether or not you share synergy between the different characters, either by having the same attribute or by belonging to the same faction. That being said, now that you know the fundamental rules of how to make a proper team in Zenless Zone Zero, let's go over what I believe to be the 5 best teams in this game. And as I said in the intro, I'll make sure to include free-to-play options for each different team so that you can still enjoy them even if you don't have some of the best characters. The first team that I'm going to be recommending is a mono-electric team that is going to be using Anton, Grace, and Rina. Despite initially seeming somewhat underwhelming, Anton can actually be a very competent main damage dealer. His damage output while in burst mode is surprisingly high, and his ability to partially trigger any shock on the target are part of the reason why he is such a good character to complement this team. And because Anton wants to attack enemies that are already inflicted with shock as much as possible, his best teammate is going to be none other than Grace, as this Anomaly character can inflict shock on the enemies with a lot of ease. Grace is a ranged character with a lot of mobility that has a very fun playstyle with a lot of cancels that can allow you to essentially just keep throwing grenades in the middle of the combo, and because she is a ranged character with again a lot of mobility, you'll be safe while doing so. So the combination of these 2 characters is already very strong. You then add on top of that Rina, who is another S-rank electro character, and she is going to allow this team's damage output to go through the roof. This is because Rina is a character that by itself already excels as a support, allowing her team to deal much more damage, as Rina can provide defense penetration for the entire team so long as one of her puppets remain on the field, which is actually very easy to do. All you need to do is essentially just press the skill button and swap to a different character. On top of that, Rina can also provide an additional electric damage increase and will also make it so that enemies that are inflicted with shock are going to take extra damage. Additionally, it should be taken into account that Anton is one of the featured A-rank characters on Ellen's banner. As such, you are likely going to be getting multiple copies of him, which on top of allowing him to deal more damage will also provide him with some energy regen. Furthermore, when it comes to building Anton, his best W engines are actually pretty free-to-play friendly, with the drill rig Red Axis being his best in slot and all the other A-rank W engines being very powerful on him. Now, given that this team uses 2 different S-rank characters, you may not have, for example, Rina, so in that case, your best free-to-play alternative would be to go with Anby that everyone gets at the very start of the game. And since Anby shares the same attribute as everyone else on the team, she is of course going to benefit from the synergy. On top of that, by having Anby on the team, you're now going to have a competent stunner that can allow you to deal a lot more damage by in turn interrupting the enemies and making Grace's and Anton's job a lot easier. Though of course the damage output of this team is going to somewhat lag behind compared to when you have Rina on the team. Now the next team is one that I believe is going to be the very meta of Zenless Zone Zero at the game's launch. And it is going to be the Mono Ice team that is going to be comprised of Alan as a main DPS, Soukaku as the support, and Lycaon as the stunner. Alan is far and above the best DPS character in the entire game. The amount of damage that she is able to output thanks to her flash freeze stacks is absolutely insane. She's just a very powerful character with access to a lot of powerful bonus that put her at the top of the meta. Seriously, using Alan's special attack and following it up with the EX special attack is already going to deal a ton of damage, but then you get additional flash freeze stacks, and with that you can even deal much more damage. Then you can combine Alan with Soukaku, an A-rank character that is featured on Alan's banner, so you are likely going to be getting multiple copies of her, not to mention that everyone is going to get one Soukaku for free, and given that they of course share the ice attribute, means that Alan is going to deal more ice damage, and Soukaku is also going to benefit from that synergy as well. That being said, Soukaku is an extremely powerful character by herself, being capable of providing a meaningful attack buff to everyone on the team, while at the same time forcing switches by using her hold skill, means that she is going to be a fantastic addition to the team. Not to mention that with some additional copies of Soukaku, you're going to be able to reduce the enemy's ice resistance, which again means that Alan is going to be able to deal much more damage. And finally we have Lycaon, that not only shares the same faction as Alan, the Victoria Housekeeping Company, but he is also an ice attribute agent. Now the real reason why you want to have Lycaon on the team, other than the fact that he perfectly synergizes with both characters, is that he is by far and above the best stunner in the entire game, being capable of stunning enemies in just a combo or two, even against bosses. His dice buildup is like no one else in the entire game, and again, given that Soukaku is going to be a core element of the team, means that Lycaon is going to be able to output some serious damage despite being a stun agent. And because you will be stunning the enemy so many times, it will be so much easier for Alan and Soukaku both to freeze the enemy. And whenever the enemy is frozen, not only are they unable to move and take action, but they will also take 50% increased crit damage. This combination is going to be by far the best one in the entire game, though if you do not have access to Lycaon, then you can swap him out and have Rina as your alternative character. Rina is not going to share the ice attribute, but given that she shares the same faction as Alan, she is still going to benefit from the synergy, and the additional damage against shocked enemies that Rina also provides not being taken into account with this team. The fact that you can simply hop into Rina, use her skill, and very quickly swap back to Alan, and the enemies will be taking damage from Rina's puppets and their defense is going to be reduced, already provides a ton of value to Alan, who simply wants to deal as much damage as possible. Now given that there aren't any more ice agents on the game, and there's currently no one else from Soukaku's faction in the game as well, if you don't have Lycaon or Rina and you want a replacement for that slot, then you could always go with another support character or any other stunner in the game, as Alan and Soukaku by themselves are going to be such a powerful core that can carry you through anything. Now let's switch things off to a more free-to-play team, one that uses a character that everyone is going to have from the very start of the game, and that is going to be none other than Corin. Corin is a physical attacker from the Victoria Housekeeping Company faction that I didn't mention in the previous team because, well, we already had an attacker in Alan. That being said, Corin can actually be a very competent damage dealer, especially with the right team, and so in that sense you can actually kind of replace Alan with Corin from the previous team and have Corin combined with Soukaku for the support and Lycaon as the stunner. This team is still going to fill the synergy quota, as Soukaku and Lycaon share the same attributes and Corin and Lycaon belong to the same house. And on that front, given that Corin is a physical damage dealer, combined with Lycaon you'll be able to trigger a lot of assault with Corin, which is actually going to deal to a ton of damage, especially if you master Corin's combos and how to best utilize her sword to the most potential. That being said, you can also swap Soukaku for Lucy, the new fire support A-rank agent that can provide a lot of attack buffs, and that is of course going to lead to Corin dealing much more damage. And if you don't happen to get lucky and get Lycaon, you can alternatively replace him with any other stunner in the game, and the problem with this team is that there's not really going to be any synergy between the different characters, but simply given how powerful and how they complement each other based off of their kits, I do believe that the result is actually going to be very good. The next team is one that is going to use two different characters that everyone is going to get, those two being Nicole and Anby, and we're going to finalize the team by adding Nekomata. Nekomata is a physical attacker that, much like like Nicole and Anby belongs to the Cunning Hairs faction. So in terms of synergy, we are pretty much covered there. Now Nekomata is a very fast attacker that can often go behind the enemy's back, which is not only going to allow you to avoid incoming damage, but will also allow you to deal even more damage, provided that you have multiple copies of Nekomata. Now even if you don't have multiple copies of Nekomata, this character can still output a very good amount of damage, and her ability to quickly move around the battlefield all the while dealing damage is what makes Nekomata such a great character. And when performing the ultimate, the chain attack or dodge counters, Nekomata has access to some great AoE coverage, which is going to make the job of cleaning up weaker enemies a lot easier. And of course you combine that with Nicole's ability to group enemies together with her black hole, and when it comes to clearing waves, this team is going to excel. And as stated before, Nicole is going to be there to provide a defense shred debuff on enemies that will allow Nekomata to deal much more damage. And finally, we're going to have Anby as the designated stunner that can combo together her EX special attack with her charged basic attacks to build up daze and be able to create stuns very easily. This is essentially a very free-to-play friendly team, as after all, 2/3 of the team are going to be guaranteed for you, with the only missing piece being Nekomata. Now alternatively, you could also replace Anby with Lycaon, and despite Lycaon not sharing the same attribute or faction as any of these characters, given his sheer power and ability to build up daze very easily, is more than enough reason for me to recommend you guys to use him instead of Anby in case you have him. Now that being said, some of you guys might be asking why I don't recommend using Piper with Nekomata, since she is a physical character. And the reason quite simply is that Piper as an anomaly character likes to stay on field for a good amount of time. And because of that, having Nekomata and Piper on the same team is essentially going to result in a DPS competition between the two characters, and as you might expect, Nekomata is always going to come out on top. So until we get a better physical character that can support Nekomata, this is the team that I would recommend you guys to go with. And the final team that I'm going to be recommending to you guys is going to be a mono fire team that is comprised of Soldier 11, Koleda, and Lucy. Now Soldier 11 is going to act as your primary damage dealer, as she really is able to output a lot of damage, and with the right team you won't even need to worry about Soldier 11's unique mechanic, where you need to perfectly time your attacks in order to imbue your sword with flame to deal more damage. And to that effect, we're going to be pairing Soldier 11 with Lucy, who is going to be a fantastic support character that is going to provide some meaningful attack buffs, and of course is going to share the same attributes. And a very cool thing about Lucy is that on top of granting this attack buff, she's also going to leave her 3 pet guard boars on field, and they will keep attacking the enemies, dealing a decent amount of damage and helping build up daze. And speaking of daze, that is where Koleda is going to come in, as she is going to be the stunner of the team, as she can use her skill in the middle of her combo to create these explosive bursts of fire damage that will build up daze even faster, and she is a very easy character to play all around, that on top of that also gains temporary invincibility frames during some of her basic attack sequences. Now you guys might be wondering, since I am making a mono fire team and I am using Koleda, why am I not recommending Ben Bigger? Well, he is actually going to be a very good replacement for Lucy in case you don't have her, as he can block any incoming attacks and can also provide a shield to the entire team. And of course, combining Koleda with Ben Bigger is going to allow you to use their coordinated attack that is going to deal much more damage and also build up a lot more daze. Now the reason why I believe Lucy is going to be a better option over Ben Bigger is actually very simple. The attack buffs that Lucy provides are going to be much more helpful than having Ben Bigger provide you some shields or a way to block incoming attacks, when dodging out of the way of most damage in this game is actually quite easy. And until you get to the later stages of the shield defense, which is the endgame mode of Zenless Zone 0, you're not really going to need to have a character that is going to provide you shields. You would be much better off having a character that is going to buff the damage output of your team, so that you are able to clear all of the content much faster and also get more rewards from doing so, since the rewards that you get are tied to how quickly you are able to finish the activity. Don't be discouraged though, putting Koleda and Ben Bigger on the same team is going to result in a great pairing. I just don't think that it is going to be as effective as going with Lucy and increasing Soldier 11's damage output. That being said, I am planning on making a video where I make the best teams for each different S-rank character, so that you can play around them as if they were the main DPS character of the team, even if they are not an attacker. So if you look forward to that and more Zenless Zone 0 videos, please subscribe to the channel so you have better luck on your next 50-50. With that being said, my name is DarkHero, and thank you all so much for watching.